according to different instances and scenarios, and how they can play out as if, of course, the computer is always going to run in ultra-fast mode, but you would, in theory, claim that you would watch something it would run it as if a process, as if it was so complex that the program continued to expand and teach itself. But then you have me running around. I grew up in this town with so many people in this many school and who's dating who and stuff and how it comes out. And natural life, because that's what the program's meant to do. It's not you're playing it in a program deciding things like that. You're letting it play out in regular life. On a computer that's building knowledge, and it should be effectively storing it, but it would be recording and generating things. Like what you play to the eyes has to be realistic. It has to be like a selfie camera, but from your eye lens. Like the eye's a lens. It has to come from them. It comes from both. You can't just have, you ain't going to just have one, you're going to have both. It may one day become so fast in simulation that, you would still see both. But to save space, it may only have one video on a computer. It'll probably have both. One from each eye. It'll have all of it. And in reality, you're going to have simulations, recordings of smells on how smells are sent along nerves, how it reads it, how you smell things, how you taste things. It's going to have this in a recording, but it's going to be like, well, there's only 3 of Justin at school. And there's 2 girls that are Justins are interested in at most. One of them sitting over here like, but whatever life happens with them, it could also be greatly influenced about what happens with those 5 people while they live there growing up based on what's available, on the internet when they use search terms, what comes up in their media, what's available for them when they search and use the internet to find things like this. It's going to be influenced like this. It's influential into the entire environment that you're playing out, and it's a recording like that. It's recording, the computer has all the nerve stimulation. These people are sitting here still responding in a core program, as if you would record it to the body, as if the nerves traveling from an arm or somehow coming from an arm. They still have all of in the virtual, this paradise, they still have all of these signals. It's all still in the computer, as if it's all been monitored. It's still having the same impact on the mind. It's still all there. It's still like they're experiencing feelings and how they affect it in the brain. It's all still coming into a program. It's all still coming into it as if it's come from the natural body. It's all like you're sitting there. It's all live speed of all the body is there. But it's in a computer and it's still coming back as if calculations are happening of it. It's like, oh man, he still had the same experience and learned it naturally through interactions like in a calculator type event that is just natural as the body walks around. What it sees, what it smells, what it tastes, but it still has all the pleasure sensors, the smells. It still has the experiences if the environment has them too, because you want the realistic environment. And it's in a simulation as if they have employment. It's in a simulation, but it's all accurate. It is all accurate. It's like they've already, they grew up in an environment. You might say someone else bulldozed off the top of the ground and then they started deep mining coal. You might say they smell it, they work down there. This is what happened. This is the different things. And when you go into if the computer is going to ever be able to fast forward that, because the calculations are going to come through in the simulation. It all hits like in a calculation. It's still smelt. It still hit a calculation point. The smell to that in this person, the eyes to that, what they were seeing on their eyes, you told them in the simulation, there's mirrors in it, they still see it, it still hits them like a calculation and affects them, and it's recorded still. So the whole point of this virtual paradise, it's all there. It's all always there. You're always there. It's as if they're having their own way, and it's like they would still have webcams and stuff, so that way they would still use them and interact with each other, just like in real life, of all possible things that they could do. They go through life, and it's like this real world environment of what happens. And what else is there? Of course, it can be fast forwarded. You can set the program, have them do it in a program, and start another program, almost like What does someone call it in Rick and Morty? Multiverses. They go into multiverses. They're like, oh, these people live in an additional world. A different program was running, but someone else started it. And who knows? But it can be fast forwarded. It's still calculating. The computer's still calculating it on the parameters that they grow up and live in the world. It's also realistic. It's natural. It's an AI copy of the brain, as if the implants are monitoring it to get the calculations that they needed. So all that's running against each other, as if, bam, they did walk around if you watched it live. But when you hit fast forward on the computer, it's already ran through the whole environment. So as long as the environment is realistic, you're getting results back of a human in an exact simulation, as if it's growing up, been raised in the environment. Now, of course, you're going to start somewhere with a parent. You're going to start somewhere with something that you've already established, like this human being growing up from birth. And whatever you started with to begin that, before you had done that, to get more results back. You're always going to go back into it, but it's always going to be accurate. So you can fast forward it. Those calculations are still going to happen, that they've done those things, walked around in it. It's all going to follow a map, as if it's all in reality on its own, ready to go. And it's going to follow that map when you hit fast forward still. It's going to be calculations running. It's not just going to be like, oh, I skipped forward 20 years, but I had nothing to do with it in the computer. The calculations are still going to run through that they went through the environment. That's the entire point of virtual paradise. It's all there. So yes, it is. It calculates as it goes through the environments, the smells, the mirrors, the life, the recordings that they had began with from an actual person, and then how they responded in those environments. It records it. It calculates it. It's went through so many times. It's here. It's already here. With more and more instances in it, there's no stopping it. Is how truth it is. It exists here. It is artificial intelligence. How big is the computer systems? Well, what's going to happen if you run into need a hard drive upgrade in there? What to the one that you have in the real life world? What's going to happen when you have to add a hard drive? Is the program just going to have something? Are you living in a time where you're legitimate people, as if the planet would dwarf out? All of a sudden, you hadn't told them, or do they know? They monitor the computer like a program. It's a copy, but when you run it out in real life, does something come up and tell them in like a theme in the media and stuff to tell them, hey, you're living here? Your artificial reality, that exact replica of humans in this exact situation is what's occurring. The hard drive. We're looking here, the hard drive that you're running in would need a new hard drive. Now, the computer system can still take it if it's built. It can always, like turning off the computer and cutting it back on. It should open back up to the program. It should be fair to the program itself. It should be fair to the program to make it like the computers didn't stop. Like you could pause the simulation of life. But you'd have to be true to the program, because the program was meant to build it itself. The program was meant to build this virtual top paradise that's actually real life, and all the calculations and interactions, the smells, the taste, the mirrors, the conversations, what taught the conversations occurring again to how you grew up in childhood, but what it is. The program built itself to build a mini-verse in it is what you have. And that's how complex it is in building this paradise, and how you want to make sure that it is all there to have a true copy. You would want it to be this way. But you would have things in it like, but what is it that has occurred? What is it that has occurred? You tortured them at some point, that it would come, the program would run out, because they had a program that told them, they had a mini-verse it would happen to. But what happens? They have guns, you claim they shot each other, they still felt it because the guns are so realistically interacting through a game to whatever, accurate information you have about bullet speeds and things like that, and them even making their own ammunition, them having, they threw something in the trash. It's all there, and it's meant to be realistic, that it built itself, and it's a genuine planet. You created a planet out of it, but you created it with this person, and it ran itself. You decided, there's this much coal. They started to live here next to it. They eventually did find it because there's enough food, because you built it to be sustainable. They grew up in a plentiful place, a planet such as Earth.